Welcome out to the weekly Mastermind call, everybody. We've got options. We've got all kinds of options for what to do for a Mastermind call. I was just talking to Rod about a few of those. And I think I actually want to go in this direction. I've personally never done this before in a Mastermind, so I get nervous about it because I want this to be a great experience for everybody who's taking time out of their day to listen. So this is the topic. I want people who are totally committed to go diamond. And if that's you and you need some help and some coaching, raise your hand and ask anything you want. This is like open line Wednesday. We'll take whatever topic you want. The only thing I ask is that I only want to talk to people who are totally committed to be diamond. So if you're not, then don't ask a question. But if you are, then raise your hand. Star to raise your hand, and we'll just take your questions, and this will be a cool mastermind. Okay. Jenna, I just unmuted your line. What is your question? Jenna, did you hear me?
Hi, Seth.
Hey.
So this is a great idea here with throwing out. I want to go diamond, and just 2 nights ago, I received my approval to participate in Diamond Club, and so I want to put it out to the mastermind. I want to know what are some of the mistakes that were made in Diamond Club, in doing Diamond Club, and what would they do differently to make it successful?
Okay. Do you also want to know what you should do to make it successful?
Yes.
Okay, great. You know what was funny? This was actually one of the topics that Rod and I were discussing, was potentially having a mastermind call around how to be successful in your Diamond Club experience. And for those of you who are just joining the call, what I actually the topic of today's call is if you are totally committed to be a diamond, then you're open to ask any question of the mastermind. And so star will raise your hand if you have a question. And it can be any question. The only filter on that is that you have to be committed to be diamond. So Jenna just asked how to be successful in Diamond Club, maybe some of the mistakes that you've made, and what you would change to make sure that you had a successful Diamond Club experience. So that is the question. And so basically, I'm going to open that up to if you've done Diamond Club and have had a successful experience with it, feel free to answer Jenna's question. Let me start with just a couple things that I learned when I did Diamond Club. First of all, what I did is I hit the same areas over and over and over again. And so when I was doing Diamond Club, I had to be at least 200 miles away from where I lived in Utah. and so what I ended up doing is I had one of my areas was in Idaho and one of my areas was in Washington State. And so I just went to those same areas and did as many classes as I possibly could. And the thing that was great about it is I saw how momentum built and how a team grows beyond your capacity to enroll. For example, what happened was at first when I was showing up to Idaho, there weren't that many leaders there. But every time that I came back, we got new people that wanted to build who brought more people to the event. And so in the first month of the event, I barely made the qualification. It seems like I had to have at least 18 enrollments happen from the events that I was doing. But by the time I finished, I had so many enrollments happening as a result of constantly going back to the same area because I was going and every time I went back, more people got on board who were committed to bring more people to the event. And so it just started getting larger and larger and larger. And so I've seen people where they'll go, they'll just be like going to, as many different areas as possible. I would say pick probably 2 to 3 areas and hit those areas again and again and again and again. So, and that's how I had a successful experience. Does anybody else have any advice for Jenna on some things that you would do to make sure that she has a successful experience in Diamond Club? Maybe what were some of the mistakes that you made, the lessons you learned to make that a success? Hit star 5-star if you have some advice for Jenna and the rest of you that are wanting to do Diamond Club. Okay, Janet. Go ahead, Janet.
Hi. So what I would suggest is to first check your commitment level, because we have had people that have thought, oh, I'm going to do Diamond Club, and then by the end I will be a diamond just because I'm doing Diamond Club. And so they throw it together and they put their whole life on hold, and they make this huge sacrifice, thinking that in the end they're going to have this reward, when a lot of the times for me, Diamond Club was a step in the right direction, but it did not get me to Diamond at the end. And so if your commitment level is not at the space that it needs to be, then the disappointment that could happen could be astronomical. It could make you be like, well, this is still here. It's too hard. It's asked too much. And so what really has helped us and our leaders in this experience, if you're really truly considering Diamond Club, is to first sit down and say, if it does not turn out how I expect it to, is the sacrifice still worth it? And your answer to that question will help you to know if Diamond Club is right for you or not, and if it's going to be successful for you or not. Because if you're so connected to the result being a certain way at the end, then you will go into it and you'll have a hard time getting enrollment, because you'll be too too expectational. But if you are committed, if you know that no matter what happens, you're going to do it again, you're going to get Diamond, this is a step in the road, and you really just give your heart to it to serve, then, oh my word, it is one of the best things you could ever do for your business. So that's what I would suggest first, is ask yourself that question, and then really be honest with yourself, and then go for it, do it. Because I remember that time when Seth was coming. We knew he was going to be here. We knew he was going to show up, and it was so easy to get people to those events. It just felt good. It felt right. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Yeah. And actually, I'm not, Janet, you did Diamond Club, didn't you?
I did. Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think if there's anyone on our team who has gone Diamond who did not do Diamond Club. If you're wondering if you should do Diamond Club, I think just based upon the fact that I don't know anyone who's Diamond that didn't do it, I would certainly do it if I were you. Anyone who's thinking of doing that. Thank you, Janet.
Welcome.
Any other advice for how to be successful in Diamond Club? Does anybody have, hit star 5-star if you've done Diamond Club before and you've learned from maybe your successes or failures? What advice would you give to Gina? Is it Gina or Jenna?
It's Jenna.
Okay. Rod, go ahead.
Hey.
Hi, Rod.
Am I coming through okay?
Yep.
Perfect. I'm using a fancy dancy new set of earbuds and wanted to make sure the mic was actually working. But one of the things that I've noticed now, I actually did go Diamond through Diamond Club, and it was my second tour that I did that where I actually advanced to those ranks. But I did the same thing. Did that mean what?
Does that mean that your second time you did Diamond Club? You did Diamond Club once and then you did it a second time, and the second time is when you advanced?
Yep, that's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
So I hit the rank of diamond on the second time that I did Diamond Club. And, the first thing that I did is a recommendation that you already did, but I focused on one outside area. And I went in and scheduled as many classes as I could. And one of the things that I see people struggle with in Diamond Club where it starts to break down, or, because we sponsor a lot of people in Diamond Club. And as a result, we notice that a bunch of them drop out of it partway through, or they miss the qualifications. And what I see people often do is they resort to just being a free-for-all teaching extravaganza when they go out and they start teaching for outside teams and things like that to try to make up for enrollments. And so that's what I've realized is that's not a really good strategy. If you're having to grasp outside of your own team to make the enrollment requirements, then you're probably not concentrated enough where you have 3 or 4 or even 5 people hosting classes for you in a single area, and so that's one of my main advices is don't get caught into that trap. If you're having to resort to that, you're probably targeting too many areas, and you have too few. Your base is too small in the specific area that you're targeting. So we went into an area and we laid the base, and that's probably why we didn't go diamond the first time. But the second Diamond Club, I came back to the same area, which was Wisconsin. And today, because of that effort, there is over 5,000 team members now in Wisconsin, and there's 1 blue diamond, and I think 4 diamonds, and a whole myriad of silvers and golds as a result of that in those areas. And in fact, it's probably one of the highest concentrated areas now of the team. And I attribute it basically to having that initial commitment to an area to really build up an area instead of launching yourself all over.
Yeah, and that's actually that. Thanks for bringing up that one point. When you're doing Diamond Club, you do get credit for enrollments that happen outside of your team. Meaning, if you have someone else's team that participate in your events, and they enroll on another person's team, then you get credit for that. To maintain your qualifications in Diamond Club. But I agree with you that the people who focus on building other people's teams end up having a bad experience because they work super hard and to build another person's team. And so make sure that Diamond Club is serving you, that you're not serving Diamond Club. If Diamond Club is serving you and your team and your advancement and your success, then use Diamond Club. But but I've seen people where it actually shifts and they end up like working their butts off for Diamond Club when Diamond Club isn't serving them. Be careful about that. Kristen, did you have any other thoughts on this?
No, I feel like a lot of what I was going to say was already said. But I guess more than anything, if you think that you can just go out there and do it all by yourself, it's a big fat lie. I've done that before, and
what does that mean? What do you mean when you say doing it all yourself?
Enroll everybody all by yourself. Like, okay,
right.
I can get 18 enrollments. I can get this many people. I can invite these people, because between traveling and then in your own home area and then maintaining the team that you currently have, and all of the follow-up, and if you don't have a team that you're establishing out there that you can help learn to duplicate quickly in that 4-month or 3-month period, whatever it is. I've done it twice. It's just gonna be like so stressful that you will give up. So use Diamond Club as a way to go and teach, and like Seth and Rod were saying, do the same thing over and over and over, and just build that momentum over and over and over, and teach them alongside you. if there's someone who's willing to be beside you, it needs to. It'd be great if there were more than one person, right? Who was like, yeah, I wanna run with you. If you've got runners, then Diamond Club is it. In my
Perfect.
I've done it where I thought I had runners, and turns out after the second month they were like, this is too busy. And I was like, what? I'm still running. So just
right.
qualify your people.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Chris. And I think because most of the enrollments that I counted towards my Diamond Club experience weren't my personal enrollments. It was, I found leaders in areas that needed help and support from me that were running hard, and I was showing up to support them, encourage them, and build momentum in those areas and to find and develop leadership. And the enrollments came from all of the connections we were making in that area, not from my own, I'm going to personally enroll 18 people that killed me type of a thing.
That's right.
Yes. All right, well, let's go in a different direction. Today is an open line mastermind, meaning that if you are committed to go Diamond and you would like some mentoring, here is your chance. We have a lot of Diamonds on the call that can help provide some mentoring for you. So if you're trying to reach Diamond or Blue Diamond or above, and you have some questions and you'd like some mentoring, then hit *5* to raise your hand, and I will unmute your line and we'll talk about it. Sharon Stevens, go ahead.
Hello. I guess my question would be, so if I have several different fielders on different legs that maybe you don't have defined committed builders under them to help them to advance rank, so would you recommend that you focus on, in the process of searching for those builders and supporting those people that are your builders to qualify you, would you focus on one leg at a time and help them to find their committed builders, or kind of just across the board?
Okay, so I'm going to need a little more clarity on what you just said. So you were asking, maybe it's because I'm getting an echo where you're speaking. Are you on speakerphone by chance?
No, but I'm trying to find a place that there's not too much noise where I am.
There, right there. Wherever you're standing, it's good.
Okay, this is good?
Yep, that's great. So you were asking, ask your question again. I'm sorry.
Okay, so let's just say I have 4 committed builders, but they don't have their committed builders under them.
Uh-huh.
And so for me to support my committed builders, would you recommend that you focus on one leg at a time, say commit a month or a certain period of time to focus on this one builder, helping them, supporting them in finding their builders?
Okay, good question. So I'm going to set the stage here. So you have 4 different teams, right? Four committed builders and 4 different legs. Is that all accurate?
That is.
Okay, and they have not identified their builders yet, the people that are committed. And you were wondering if you should focus on one leg at a time?
Correct.
Well, I'll open that up for the mastermind. If you have some advice for Sharon, that's fine. I'll just jump in and say, no. If you have 4 committed leaders, then if they're committed, it means that they're going to be having classes regularly. And the same process holds, which is that those people need to be holding classes, and if they're holding classes, then enrollments are happening, and if enrollments are happening, membership and business overview should be happening, and new builders should be found in that process. But I wouldn't necessarily say I'm only focusing on this leg at this time, because if I have 4 committed people, depending on how much time I have available, right, then but I personally would be trying to make sure that the activities are happening across the board. Did that answer your question, or do you have any other
Well, yeah, I think it maybe brought clarity to some that maybe consider themselves committed builders are not actually, if they're not doing those activities.
Yeah. No, that's actually a really important point, which is that if how people determine a committed builder, because sometimes we think a committed builder is anyone who says they're interested, but if they're not doing anything, then they're not very committed. And so if they're not, then the first thing is we need to get with them and do the quick start guide with them, do a little jump start there, and get the activities on the calendar, get all of the stuff happening. And because if they're committed, classes are happening, enrollments are happening, and then in the process of classes and enrollments comes membership and business overviews, which reveal new builders, and then the process starts all over again.
Yeah, so it all comes back to their true level of commitment then.
That's exactly right.
Hey, Seth?
I think Mary Siskey may have some advice for you and somebody else. Who just said, hey, Seth?
That was Rod.
Go ahead.
Me or Mary?
Let's go Mary and then Rod.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi, Mary. Yep.
Hi. I don't know who's the name of the person who's talking right now?
Her name is Sharon.
Okay, Sharon. I have a question for you. Are your 4 builders, are they in the same location as you?
3 yes, 1 no.
Okay. So, one for sure identify how committed they are by what Seth had recommended. But also, what really helped me was I had the same thing happen going at the same time too. And I just brought them together. And it was great because were starting around the same time frame. And they were able to learn off of each other, like what works for them, what doesn't work for them. And it really built team unity across my legs. And I've noticed that once I brought them together, they were holding their own meetings together. There was one time where this one gal had a really big class and the other person, I wasn't available to teach. And the other builder on another cross leg came to help support them because they became friends. Like it's almost like a group of sisterhood that just kind of happened as we started to build together. And so we all are kind of supporting each other during this journey. And I feel like that really helped not just me as a mentor, but also them because they were kind of going through the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally.
So I would hold monthly team meetings together. It all started from like a potluck, a potluck dinner, and then they started to invite their people, and then it became, our little gathering started to spread out into my kitchen, and then now that it was like almost standing room only in my house, and then it started to build upon each other, and then they started to branch off and hold their own monthly meetings with their own teams, but we still kind of get together every quarter and, make magic happen by having like a community event. So I guess starting by getting them all together if they can, and if you have one person outside of your location, you can do a Zoom call. Technology is becoming a lot easier these days to get each other together. So I would recommend involving her by having like a FaceTime or a Zoom call so she can be involved as well.
Hey, Mary, can I ask some? Let me ask a follow-up on. There's some clarifying questions. So, when you say getting them together, are you saying you are like in Sharon's case? She has 4 leaders and she's wondering where she needs to focus her time. You're saying since 3 of the 4 people are in one geographical area, you started holding classes that all of them were inviting people to. So all 3 leaders were coming to one location for the classes that were happening. Is that what you mean when you say bringing them together, or what?
Thanks for clarifying. No, they would have their own team, their own classes. But when I say a team gathering, it was basically like a business gathering,
like a monthly training.
So,
so you were doing a monthly training in an area with them. Okay.
Like they would come with something to eat, and then we would come together, and then they would have pretty much similar building questions for me. And we would just kind of go over it together. Sometimes we would go over the fast track planner. We would refocus on our goals, where we want to go in 3 months, because you always have to reevaluate your goals. So we would look that over, set the goals for the next month or for the 3 months, and then also like get a book club together. So I remember we read The Slight Edge together, a lot of us, and so we were focused on personal development as well as the necessary steps in building.
Okay, good. So that was okay. So you were bringing them together for like a combined monthly training with all the leaders in a geographical area and their teams. I'm assuming, and that was a way for you to support all of your leaders at the same time.
Yeah, and it kept me up to speed on what they were, like what their goals are, and getting clear. So she had said, that she found 4 committed builders. Well, how committed are they? Well, then that really nails down, like getting them together and really nailing down like the steps on how to build in the beginning.
Gotcha.
I thought that was really important. And then from there, they started to branch out and do their own classes, and me help to support them individually. But coming together is really important.
Okay, perfect. Rod, what was your point?
It's similar to what Mary is saying here. Creating team community, and let's see here. Let's make sure I'm not. Creating that team community. Also, there's some numbers that are probably good to know when you're thinking about these kind of things. So like when should groups be on their own versus together, or things like that. One thing I've noticed is that unless you have about 30 active people, it's probably hard for them to stand on their own. If there's only 2 or 3 active people on a line. So a lot of this depends on what the rank is of the individual. I mean, it's a lot different when you have diamond lines underneath you versus consultant lines or executive lines or things like that. And so pulling, one of the things that I often do is when I have small groups of builders, is I'll combine those groups together in mentoring calls or activities or other things like that, or try to get them working together if they're in an area. Now the main point that I was going to make earlier on where to invest your time, and there's a little saying that's probably good to remember, and that's throw gas on the fire. And so I usually take my energy and effort where the action is happening, and there's a good audio by a gentleman named Jim Rohn on building your network marketing business, and he uses a phrase called a statement saying, spend time with people who deserve it, not the people who need it. And so that's one of the things that we've seen where we're able to get real growth and actually get your commission levels really stabilized is by putting your energy where the energy is, and then building new energy, where maybe it's lacking a little bit. Doesn't mean you're ignoring people. Just means that we're inviting everyone, working with those that move towards us, and mentoring the committed people. And so I've seen a lot of energy and a lot of stagnation happening in teams where an inordinate amount of energy is going towards the weakness rather than focusing on the strengths inside the team. And so that's my little guide on, where do you put your energy on your team.
It's difficult to do when you need volume in particular spots to reach rank. But as you run with where the energy is, it builds the amount of momentum and the amount of work that actually gets done based, when you consider the amount of time that you're putting into it. It's actually miraculous. It's actually one of the miracles of this business is that if you put your energy where there is energy, it creates this enormous momentum where it just grows beyond anything that you can even. You can't stop the growth in those areas.
Right. And as long as you're a silver too, you'll earn just as much on the bionic leg. so even if you have one really strong leadership team, and if you have two other elite legs, you'll still earn as much as you can on that leg. So we have several people that have one major leadership group underneath them that do quite well because of that. And
right.
And so that's a good thing. And I remember, Seth, if we rewind, back to the beginning, I remember it took quite a while for when your group to go silver, and then it took quite a while for your group to go diamond. But you had two massive legs.
Right.
And as a result, and almost all the major leadership groups are inside those two legs. And that's probably true of most leaders too. If you really dial it down, there's probably one or two legs that really have the population of major leadership advancement and things like that. And
right.
But the end result of that is your check is right up there with mine. And so
right.
So in the long run, it's not it's not like it costs anything to have that kind of focus. It actually strengthened those lines so that they're permanent.
Yeah, because sometimes people make the mistake of like, well, I'm gonna, they'll hit diamond with very small, low overall volume, and as a result, they end up, it's not as lucrative as if you build a big team. If you're thinking in the long run, you want to think in terms of building enough volume and that the unilevel check out does everything else anyway. So
Right. Yeah. So there's two major factors that matter. One is going silver matters because that opens up the entire comp plan, and the second thing is volume is what you get paid on, and so when those two factors are in place, and you're concentrated, on the qualification rank and then the volume, the checks can get quite large. And then of course from there, if you're able to expand your influence across your upper lines and reach the upper level ranks, then there's the bonus pools and things that become available to increase. Yeah. But as far as having a great quality of life and having a great income from doTERRA, those two things, silver rank and volume, are going to make a huge difference.
Perfect. Okay. Anne, you have your hand raised. I unmuted your line. What question do you have for us?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So my question is, when you are closing a class, how do you open up the opportunity for people to host a class? And what kind of incentives do you present for the people who host classes to continue the classes for Diamond Club?
Okay. So at the end of a class, when you're closing it, how do you what kind of incentives do we offer to get other people to host classes? That was your question, correct?
Yeah, and how do you word that as you're closing the class of presenting the opportunity for others to host the class as well?
All right. So I'm going to let the mastermind answer this. So hit *5* if you have some advice for Anne. I'll just share with you an interesting thought for me.
Okay.
I rarely do that. I almost never do it. And the only reason why I haven't is because I just keep on, I stick with the very simple process of from that class, enrollments are going to happen. And from enrollments, to membership and business overviews, and business overviews leads to committed builders, which leads to more classes. And so I just kind of trust that process. And so for me, my focus at the end of the class is to get people to enroll, and my focus with an enrollment is to schedule the member overview, because I know that if I follow that process, then the classes are going to happen anyway. Because otherwise, what happens is no, I'm not saying that having other people host classes is bad, but if people are hosting classes without going through that process, then sometimes you have uncommitted people giving classes. And then what if they have people at their class that actually want to build the business and they don't? Well, then where do we put those enrollments? And then if you put those enrollments anywhere else, and then the people that hosted the class decide to build later on, what do you do? How do you get the enrollments back to them? And so I've kind of found that it's difficult to have people who aren't committed hosting classes, because one, they're not committed enough to fill the class, and two, even if they do fill the class and they're not committed to build the business, where do you put their enrollments? And if you put them under them, that can lead to issues as well. And so for me, I always just stick to the process, because then I know that we're enrolling people under people who are committed. And it just removes a whole lot of drama. Now, with that said, I want to be careful and let you know that I'm not saying that I shouldn't give out incentives for people to enroll, because I'm probably missing out on classes that could be happening that aren't. But I just wanted to share with you why I haven't, is just because I just trust in that process. However, Janet may have a different thought. Janet, what do you got?
Hi, yes. So I have done that before. And so what I'm going to do first is give you some suggestions, because that's what you asked for. But I would really, do you have your oils on you? What's your name?
Anne.
Anne, hi. Do you have any oils on you right now, like around you, that you can go and grab?
I have my geranium and lime. I have all the emotion oils.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you some suggestions of oils to use. I am going to answer that, though, because I agree with Seth. Seth is talking about a very focused way to just get it done, get your business built. But there are some mental blocks that happen along the process that hosting classes and getting people to host classes popped me out of some of those blocks that I had, and just like getting it done, getting your diamond, getting your blue diamond, whatever it is. So some incentives that I did to help people in host is I would have a little sign up sheet that you can send around and sign up for that, and then I would bring I'd have an oil, or I'd have something to say, if anyone who signs up to host a class tonight, you'll go home with this. Like, I usually use the free oil of the month that I was getting, especially in the beginning, that are not a whole lot of skin off of you, but it's something that's like, okay, it gets people to put their names on a piece of paper and make a commitment that day. But I am also agreeing with Seth in the fact that once you understand your value and the fact of the matter that you are there, ready to create something so big, so incredibly, like you hold the cookie idea, and people wanting to do classes isn't a problem. When you find yourself stagnating there and needing to build momentum, then it is an inspiration that comes, because people will usually commit, but they usually won't. It's all those problems that Seth's talking about, where you don't usually find your most committed people in doing it that way. And sometimes you do, so don't turn away that. But what I would suggest is get some cypress and some wild orange, some ylang-ylang, and some juniper berry, my friends. Are you writing these down?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to put cypress on your actual temples on your head, the temples of your head, because cypress is the oil of motion and flow, and if you're not having people coming to you saying, I want you to come to my house and I've got 5 people that you have to teach this, there's some motion and flow that's stuck up in the mente, my dear, up in the mind. So you need to put some cypress on that. And then wild orange, you're going to do just like, I call it a brain swipe, where you take from temple to temple and then right in between your eyebrows. Wild orange is the oil of abundance. So cypress and wild orange together, increase flow, and just be ready for some limiting beliefs about who you are, what you're capable of, and all those things to come pouring out. Write them down, and then write the truth about who you are, because you should be showing up to places, and by the end of you speaking, they come to you and say, I have people that you have to be in front of. Okay? I can feel that in you. I can hear it in you. It's there. Mm-hmm. There's just some limiting beliefs about who you are. Now, juniper berry you're going to put on your kidneys because there's some fear with that. And then Elaine going to go on your stomach to help you know that it's fun. This is just fun, what we do. It's so life-changing, and people are drawn to it when we step into that and we don't limit ourselves. Okay?
All right.
Thanks, Janet. Any other advice for Anne in this regard? How do you get people at the end of your class to sign up to host a class? That's the question. Any advice? Star 5 star to raise your hand. You know, I hate to keep bringing this up, Anne, but honestly, I'm just sitting here thinking, man, I'm trying to figure out if I'm missing out on something. I probably am. And so, on the other hand, I also know that those classes are going to come in time, right? And so, I'm not doubting that. I know that they're around the corner if I just follow that process.
I think the thing that I'm coming across, maybe people have this problem too, is that I'm teaching these classes and I'm blowing people's minds away, but I'm not being duplicatable because I'm intimidating my new builders. So I feel like I'm holding back a lot when I'm doing these new classes because I'm hearing a lot of people say, I could never do what you do. You're so knowledgeable. And so, I have that fear that I give all of myself to my classes, and then, yes, I enroll everybody, but my new builders who are wanting to do it, it's intimidating because they're like, well, so it's not the edge system, it's not being duplicatable to really, I'm just kind of at that crossroad. I don't really know what to do.
So, you know what? Let me just say this. Keep teaching an impressive class. But if you can simplify where you can, but try not to lose the power of the class. Also realize that when you're taking someone through the process of the 3 doors and you commit someone to build and someone says, okay, but I could never do what you do, just say, well, I'm going to be helping you with your classes. So just invite people and get people inviting people to those classes. And for a while you're going to teach. But I think what happens is eventually the people that just keep on bringing people, they realize, as you say, hey, what do you feel comfortable teaching on this class tear sheet? And they could say, well, I could talk about peppermint, or I could talk about whatever. And you're like, great. And just start giving pieces of the class over to them. And I think that, after a person hosts a couple classes and a been to classes, they're going to get there anyway. So don't worry about that. Mary, what is your advice?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You nailed it, Seth. I think that happened to me because I'm in a nursing field, and people said, "Oh, well, I'm not a nurse, so I can't do this." Well, my question to you too is, do you have the Modern Essentials book? Do you teach that in your classes?
I have the Essential Life book, and I say, this is the expert. People ask me why I know all this information. This is where I get it from.
Okay. Well, I don't, the Essential Life book, I feel, to me, and I've heard from other people, too, that it can be a little bit intimidating. because it's like all these different recipes and everything, and it just looked really confusing to a lot of people. I still use the Modern Essentials book for just one reason. It really divides it up into single oils, the blends of doTERRA, and then if you had an ailment, you look it up in a major part of that book. And you're right. I always say that this is like the meat and potatoes behind all the information that you need to learn. And if there's any other questions regarding that, there is product support at doTERRA.com. And then you hook them up to all of the support groups online, and tell them I'm with you every step of the way. If you're wanting to do this just for oil knowledge and yourself, that there's a place for you in doTERRA. If you want to join me in this journey, so that's what I say at the end of my class too. If you want to join me in this journey and you feel like this is something that speaks to your heart and you want to empower others as well, then there's also a place for you in doTERRA, and I will walk with you every step of the way. So they feel like they're supported. And I even say, even I started off being very intimidated, even as a nurse, because we were never taught this in our school. So even though I have a degree in nursing, it was still kind of going back to college for me. And 4 years later, and I'm still learning new things. So I always tell people just take a step at a time, and I'm with you every step of the way. And if you show that to them and you actually do what you say you're doing, then it will follow through. It will come to pass, and you will find and attract those builders.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I let me share with you one thing. I've actually, and Holly can go right after this. But one of the things that I've done to end a class that's been really helpful, I did this when I was in Italy, and it was kind of funny because at the end of my class, because I had to say something and then I had a translator that was repeating whatever I said, I had to get really, like, I could say things in a much more bold way because I could think about the words and I said them really slowly, like, and it felt different than when I got back in the States. But one thing I said at the end of the class, you always share your why, like why you share doTERRA. And I would share, the powerful experiences that have happened to me in my journey in doTERRA, and to share with them why I choose to share with others. And one of the things is after I got done explaining that, I would say I would like to invite all of you to join me in bringing these gifts of the earth to all of Italy. And it was like I just invited everyone to join this cause. And it was interesting because the results from that were so great because people really wanted to know what they could do to help me in that cause of bringing the gifts of the earth to Italy. And I guess my point is that a simple invitation like that at the end of the class can also inspire the people that may be really interested in sharing. But I still would go through the process of the member and business overview so that they knew what they were getting into. Holly, what are your thoughts?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Actually, I had my question was going to continue on with what you guys were just answering about. What are some of the things that you talk about at the end of a class to help them see the vision of what doTERRA could create for them financially, or just more on the opportunity side at a class?
Great question. So how do you introduce the opportunity at a class? Is your
right? Yeah.
The buyer's guide is what helps me the most, but I'm going to open this up to others. And by the way, did you feel like you got your question answered?
Absolutely. Thank you.
You bet. Who can help answer that question for Holly? In how do you help people see the vision of the opportunity in the class? I could answer this, but Holly hears from me all the time, and I want to hear.
So if I could give a suggestion, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, the buyer's guide. I just hand it out, and I've found lately, in times that it hasn't been successful for me is when I have taken out and just like was it Amy was saying, given too much information, and that's kind of that has shut people off before. But those times where I open it up and I just simply say as I'm pointing at it, this is something that I love to do, and I'm looking for people that would love to do it too, and just making a strong one statement I found, and I've done multiple different ones depending on how I feel about what the feeling is in the class. The one power statement as you're pointing at the numbers and all that, just being able to say this is what I'm about and I'm inviting you, is probably one of the strongest statements or strongest things that I've done in having where people have actually come and said, I want to know more. And when they're asking that question about wanting to know more, then they'll listen to the whole spiel. They'll listen to everything. That's what I would suggest.
Yeah, just a really powerful invitation at the end of the class. Is that what you're saying, Janet? Just a really good, powerful statement.
Yeah, a powerful statement and then invitation.
Okay, cool.
So do you go through on the buyer's guide both the Power of 3 and the unilevel? Like, do you talk about those numbers, or do you just kind of give reference to it and then make a powerful statement?
It depends on the feel of the class. There's those classes, Holly, where there's people that you can tell are in there, and like you just feel that they're looking for it, and so I always ask permission. Is it okay if I say this? If I tell you guys, and if they're like, yeah, I want to know, then yeah, I'll answer any question that they have, and I will open it up for questions during that time. So very rarely do I stand and say the whole entire spiel of it. And this is just me. There might be others that do something differently. The whole entire spiel, unless I offer, I say I would like to, is there anyone interested or any questions? And then I give a power statement about it. But if they're not asking questions and they're not, totally engaged in what, I do point to the numbers as I'm saying, this is what I'm offering to you, and I'm looking for people. I do say, look at those numbers. That's what the possibilities are. And then I'm looking for people, and I love to know if it's you. So that's me.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, same here. I more so, I don't go over all the details on that income section. I just kind of say, as you can see here, if you want to make $50 or a month, or maybe you want to get your product paid for, just make a couple $100 a month, or if you want to make over $30,000 a month, that's all a possibility to you. And if that's something of interest, then we can go over that in detail later on. That's how I normally do it. Jacqueline Child, do you have a comment? And Kristen Fox after that.
I was just going to mention that sometimes something that's been powerful, and I shared it at the the boot camp at convention, but sometimes I'll actually share the story of buckets and pipelines, and introduce the opportunity in that way when you get to the pictures on the buyer's guide. And that, I think Janet brought up something really good. It's really the feel of the class that determines exactly how I'm going to invite people. So I've had that work just amazingly well in several classes. And it's usually the classes where the people are just super open and they're touched by what you're saying, and you can tell that they have like a real emotional connection. I have taught classes where, for whatever reason, you can tell the people are very not open. They're also
just not like just kind of cold. You know that feeling, right?
Yeah.
Maybe none of you've had classes, but I've had it, where sharing that story might be a little corny at that moment, but you would still want to say something. I think it's important that something is said so people know. I love what Seth said just now about whether you want to make $50, you want to get your practice for free, or if you want to make $3,000, that's all an option. I like that because I think people need to know that there's all three different levels. But I think it's really important, to kind of feel the feeling of the class. But having said that, if you feel a real connection to those people and they are very touched, give a even bolder, what are we talking about? Invitation. Give an even bolder invitation and invite them in. And I've definitely seen classes where, people are just very drawn to it. You can tell they're very passionate about it and it's really touched their heart. And those, I think you can give even bolder invitations to. And sometimes it's just one individual sitting in the class that you can see it in their eyes that they've, Janet has talked a lot about how she was sitting in her first class and she just felt something and knew that she wanted to share it. And there are people having those experiences in your class. And what I have found is that people really will just let those feelings pass by if we don't invite them to act on them. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you.
Kristen?
Yeah, Jacqueline, that actually went really well with what I was going to say. I'll never forget Seth's invitation to me to look at the business. I was one of those people who just glazed over when he was talking about prices and buying kits and what to do after that because I was convinced I was not going to do network marketing, and I left without buying anything. And so what Seth did is he put a fast track planner across the table. He just slid it across, and he just said, hey, check this out, and if you hate it, don't worry about it. But if there's something on here that likes you or that you like, that you want to talk about, one of us here would love to talk with you. And so it was just a really if you hate it, walk away. I don't want to have anything to do with you. and I was one of those people that really needed it, and I was praying for it. But I was not like what you said, Jacqueline. I was just going to let the moment pass me by, and I was inspired to the point of tears at that class. Yet I would not pick up the paper to look at the prices and make a decision about anything moving forward. And so really go with your inspiration and go ahead and be bold. And you can still be bold and not push people away. And were it not for follow-up that I had from 3 different people that next day, where I sat all day long hardly doing anything, going, oh, should I call them? Should I not? No, I'm not going to call them. And they called me. And so if you extend that invitation, you have to follow up with it, even if it feels awkward. Because I know, as I was leaving, Julianne goes, let it go. And I said, I'm not buying anything. So see you later. So all she knew was I was out. But she and Courtney both followed up, and I think Janet did as well. And so anyway, that's all.
No, thank you, Kristen.
Yeah.
And actually, we've got 1 minute left on the call, and let me just, what you just said there and kind of brought a thought to me of how I want to end the call. But there is somebody, I reach out to people on my team who were committed at one point, and then they've for whatever reason have given up or have not decided to do this. And I reach out to them occasionally to see if there's still any embers that I can help reignite a passion and a fire again. And I called someone up the other day and said, hey, you were committed to be Diamond once on my team, and I said, is that still something that you're considering? And they said no, and thanks for calling, but this isn't what I want to do, and I'm moving in a different direction and all that. And I said, no problem. I said, but if you ever do want to engage again, let me know, okay? Because I'd love to help you. Anyway, 1 or 2 days later, I got a text from that person that said, you know what, I've reconsidered, let's meet. And I just met with them this morning and explained to them my vision of what I'm trying to accomplish with this, and they committed again, all in, and you know, I guess my point is that kind of to accompany what Kristen was just saying, it's your job to reach out, to inspire, to to extend the invitation, to leave the door open, to never burn the bridge, and to always be there for those people, because when the moment arrives, then it's your opportunity to invite boldly for them to come and follow you in your mission vision with where you're going. And as you do that, this process gets just so fun. So anyway, thanks everybody for the great questions and for making the Mastermind call a success today. We'll talk to you all next week.